With that, I have the distinct privilege of introducing our keynote speaker tonight, Dr. Seth Center, who's the acting Special Envoy for Critical and Emerging Technology in the U.S. State Department. Seth has worn many different hats. He served in the State Department policy planning staff. He's been the senior advisor to the National Security Commission on AI in the United States. He served in the National Security Council in the United States in helping write, I think basically mostly wrote the national security strategy. But interestingly, he's also a historian. He's also a think tanker. I think fair to say, Seth, you get what all of this is about more than other officials. And we're just delighted that you could come and spend this time here, especially in Bengaluru. And if I can add, Seth is a very good friend to India. Dr. Seth Center, please.
Thanks, Rudy. I appreciate it. And it's a lot of pressure to be a part of an inaugural anything, especially when it involves innovation and a summit with a great tradition. So delighted to be here. Thrilled to be in Bengaluru. Huge amount of effort goes into this. So thanks to Carnegie and team for putting it on. Kindred spirits in the external affairs division who do policy planning. Again, something that I'm fond of. The real question, though, is why I'm here and why we're here. And I ask that because on the plane here yesterday morning, I was talking to a DevOps guy, a software guy. He had a T-shirt on, and he was clearly a computer guy. And I explained I was from the State Department in the United States. And he says to me, "We don't see any of you guys down here at all." And I said, then I'm going to the exact right place for the conversation that we need to have. Also on that plane, I did some very serious research on Google, and one of the first hits on Bengaluru and tech was an article titled "Peak Bengaluru," where I learned that a hotel was employing a virtual AI assistant to check in guests. And I hope that is not the apex of AI or Bengaluru, but indicative of an innovative environment down here. I think equally indicative, yesterday I was meeting with some Karnataka state officials, one of whom corrected me when I said that this was the Silicon Valley of India. And she reminded me, in fact, that the ambition was that the Silicon Valley would be the Bengaluru of the West Coast of the United States, which I thought was exactly right in capturing both the talent and the ambition. Also talked to a biotech founder yesterday, a startup, who explained that Bangalore and the Bay Area were two sides of the same coin. So you see this extraordinary coupling of talent, ambition, and a relationship between U.S. innovators and Indian innovators. So I think that helps to explain the wisdom of bringing this conversation back here to Bengaluru, but it still doesn't answer the question of why we're here. And I think we're here for the same reason that many governments now pass through Silicon Valley. And that is, as a wise person once told me, that even if technology firms are not interested in geopolitics are certainly very interested in technology. And the bigger picture there, of course, is one that was very clear just a few weeks ago in Wilmington, Delaware, on the geopolitical front, where Presidents Modi and Biden called their relationship the defining partnership of the 21st century that is decisively delivering and serving the public good in the world. And of course, that's the real story of the intersection of the United States, India, and technology, where in reality, as all of us have experienced, some with more forethought than others, Carnegie being on the leading edge, that tech is integral now to statecraft. It's integral now to the foreign affairs and diplomatic community, which I'm a part of. It's indicative in the Biden administration's approach to a new industrial policy, where we put $52 billion into revitalizing the microelectronics industry in the United States, tried to revitalize the clean energy agenda in the United States and the clean tech agenda as well. And of course, it's indicative in the recognition that we need to elevate the ways in which technology is transforming economic statecraft, military affairs, and how we need to rethink upstream and downstream dimensions of every technology stack. We now have India as a member of a partner in a critical minerals partnership at the upstream. We now have deep and integral conversations across many technology areas on supply chains. We've recognized the strategic impact of commercialization. And of course, now we're partnering with India on AI governance agendas around the world. So you see this full stack recognition of the intersection of geopolitics and technology. And in all of these technology areas where we care about, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's quantum information science, biotechnology, there's a recognition that we have a joint common project, which is to shape the rules of the road for these technologies as they play out. A recognition that the competition for commercial influence across the world to field, develop, deploy these technologies is not just a commercial competition, it's a geopolitical competition. A recognition that our common security and common prosperity require building trusted technology ecosystems in all of the critical technology areas. And of course, there's a recognition that in certain very small subsets of these technology areas that implicate our narrow national security interests, we need to think through what small yards and high fence approaches to technology protection will require. And the logic of this statecraft and the logic of this template for thinking about the intersection of technology and geopolitics has really played out in the most vivid way in the U.S. India relationship through ISET. The breadth, depth, and ambition of the bilateral partnership and the urgency of the elevation of technology and geopolitics. ISET, if I can spend a moment on it, is not just another bilateral dialogue. It's a blueprint for how strategic partners and large democracies can shape the future of technology and, by extension, the future of the world. And at its core, it really is about reminding the world and driving forward the belief that the 21st century should be rooted in shared democratic values. And so when President Biden and President Modi did launch this initiative in 2022, they had a larger vision, a larger agenda. And I've been privileged personally to be a part of the two National Security Advisor ISET programs, as well as the intercessional agenda that we had here on the margins of the GTS Summit last year. And what they've done more than anything else, if we look back on 18 months of accomplishment, is by bringing together the highest level officials in governments, what they've done is activate extraordinarily large and complex bureaucracies to act in unprecedented ways with unprecedented speed to accomplish concrete action. And they've done so only because of partnership often with the private sector in that. So let me just share a few examples of what this looks like to explain what a true full stack tech partnership looks like across R&D, hardware, manufacturing, supply chains, commercialization, applications, and rules and governance. At the hardware level, in semiconductors, the recent announcement during the Modi-Biden summit on the creation of a new semiconductor fabrication plant was a remarkable achievement, something that probably would have not been imaginable 18 months ago or 2 years ago, and was unlocked because of ISET, a commitment to focus on advanced sensing communication, power electronics for national security that can touch on next-gen communications and green energy applications, a partnership between a private sector firm, the U.S. government, the U.S. military, and the Indian government, the Indian military, and India's semiconductor mission. So you see this incredibly complicated partnership coming together and producing outcomes. We're putting real resources and effort behind the R&D relationship, which is long-standing and we should be proud of over decades. $90 million in committed government funding over the next 5 years for the U.S. India Global Challenge Institute, the U.S. National Science Foundation, and India's Department of Science and Technology, selecting 11 projects for funding with a grant of over $5 million covering key areas like telecommunications, connected vehicles, and machine learning. And in the realm of biotech, an area where we need to do far more than we've done in the past, a commitment to the first ever joint call for collaborative research projects in computational biology and other cutting-edge fields like biomanufacturing solutions. Last month, I was delighted to help host a coordination mechanism meeting between U.S. and Indian quantum officials in Washington, indicative of the next phase of a complicated evolution of a technology that's going to require U.S. India cooperation. And tomorrow, I'm delighted to go up to New Delhi to help participate in the awarding of 17 awards for binational research in AI and quantum technologies through the U.S. India Science and Technology Endowment Fund. Now, all of this seems like a long list, and lists are not interesting in remarks, but the list is what conveys the concrete actions that can come out of what many people believed was only going to be a symbolic diplomatic effort. It's these concrete applications across the broad swath of technology areas that demonstrate progress and action. And so in that respect, I think it's the cumulative mass of this effort that's so impressive and provides a model for the future. And that makes me extremely optimistic looking forward. So what would be next in a U.S.-India technology partnership? And one I think that speaks to a much larger conversation in the world about how we bring technology for good, technology applications to the entire world, including the global South, which has, over the past 2 decades, rightly been very concerned about being left behind in a digital divide. I think here, India's role as a global shaper of technology now and in the future is extremely promising and exciting, whether through its role in leadership of the Global Partnership on AI over the past year, to its ambitious rollout domestically and now global vision for DPI. We see an opportunity for India to reach the developing world through its long-standing leadership in new ways, leading with technology across the stack. And I think the United States would very much like to be a partner in bringing that affirmative vision and those capabilities and capacities to the developing world. We certainly are playing our part. Just 2 weeks ago in New York, Secretary Blinken launched a global partnership on inclusivity on AI with the private sector, which is determined to deliver $100 million in AI capacity to the developing world in the categories of compute and context and capacity building. And so I think together we have a real opportunity to take what has been a bilateral relationship that's been successful and create a whole bunch of opportunities around the world. It is, and as another wise person told me yesterday, a place where innovation can meet inclusion in reaching the global South. And certainly we're eager to play our role cooperatively. This geometric expansion of the U.S. India tech partnership has played out in other ways as well. I was fortunate to be a part of the first trilateral technology conversation between U.S., India, and the Republic of Korea, covering many of these areas. The U.S. and India are participating in a Bio 5 project to think about what resilience of supply chains and pharmaceuticals will look like, an example of supply chain diplomacy and efforts in a multilateral context as well. And so you start to see opportunities really not expanding linearly, but geometrically through this relationship. It's really been a privilege to be a part of seeing the growth of this evolution. It's been really exciting to see the ways in which the think tank ideas, which germinate over many hours in some of these workshops, are translated into policy ideas. And then looking back a year or 2 years later to see how those policy ideas actually become policy and then suddenly show up in presidential statements and then drive bureaucracies into action. And so you see the full life cycle of ideas turning into action through this ISET process, in part to a large extent thanks to work like this. And of course, the take-home message coming to a place like Bengaluru is that it's not governments that are going to drive this relationship forward. It's certainly not governments that are going to drive the technology forward. It's going to be the entrepreneurs, the private sectors, the next generation of tech leaders working across borders, across Bengaluru and the Bay, that are going to drive this forward in partnership with wonderful organizations like Carnegie. And so just as I am convinced that the AI assistant at the hotel is not peak Bengaluru when it comes to tech innovation. I'm quite sure that we also have not yet reached peak ISET in the U.S. India relationship. So I really look forward to the conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And thank you so much. Appreciate it.